set.
Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the town of Pelham for Monday, January 16th, 2017 to order. We will begin with the singing of the national anthem, and I'm very pleased that Councillor Papp is back because he's going to lead us in the singing of the national anthem, and I would ask all who are able to rise. Thank you. Councillor, thank you.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy Son's command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Papp, and ladies and gentlemen, for joining in to sing our national anthem. Now to our meeting. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the agenda for the January 16th, 2017 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? I know we had, and I wonder if Councillor Durley would move this, that a correspondence item be considered at a different time. Correspondence item 951 to be considered at agenda item 18 pursuant to section 239B, personal matters about an identifiable individual. Would you
I
move
so
that?
move, yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor King. Thank you, and I saw others. I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment carries. Thank you. Are there any other changes to the agenda? There being none, I'll call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries as amended. Thank you. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members have any conflicts of interest that they need to disclose at this time?
None, Mr. Wayne.
There are none. Thank you. I have none. Can that be so noted in the minutes? Now we move to delegations. We have two delegations this evening. Thank you very much for coming. So the first is regarding the 2021 Canada Summer Games, and we have Matt Hill and Bram Cotton here from the Niagara Sport Commission. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having us. I'd first like to take a moment to recognize and thank our chair, Doug Hamilton, who can't be with us this evening, who was originally scheduled to present. Had a personal matter arise that could not be with us tonight, but he sends his regards. I'd also like to recognize Bram Cotton with the Sport Commission as well as here with us tonight. Council, as you may be aware, the Niagara region is currently in the bidding process for the 2021 Canada Summer Games. We've been going through this process now for about a year. This is a regional council, Niagara region initiative that the Sport Commission and partners have been working on to enter into a bid. We've been, as I mentioned, working on this over a year, and we're coming to the close of this bidding process at the end of the month. And with that in mind, we would like to present to you this evening how to involve the town of Pelham into that bid submission at the end of the month. So for council members that may not be aware, Mayor Augustine, I'll apologize if you've heard this already through regional council, but for councillors who may not be aware, the Canada Games are a 17 multi-sport event hosted every 4 years. They follow a similar model to an Olympic or a Pan Am Games. However, our games are a little bit different. Our games are youth-focused games with athletes competing between the ages of 16 and 23. These are essentially our next generation of Olympians. These are the athletes that have been identified within their sport on the development model as being a high-performance athlete and being a future Olympian or future national champion within their sport. So we are bidding for the 2021 Games, and we expect that these games are going to bring nearly 5,000 athletes and participants and 25,000 visitors here to our region. As I mentioned, as we've been working on this over the course of the last year, we started this proposal with two goals in mind. One, to make sure that if we are successful, that the athletes have the best experience they can possibly have here, both as a Niagara experience to enjoy what we can offer here, but also from an athletic experience to make sure that they are competing in the best possible environment for them to ensure that they are at their peak performance for the games. But secondly, to make sure that we had the opportunity, and equally importantly, had the opportunity to involve all of Niagara in these games. I'm proud to sit up here and say to you that our submission, as we have set out, would call for that. All 12 municipalities would see events within their community, both from a competition and practice perspective, but also from a cultural event perspective. While this is a sporting event we are working on, this is a celebration of Canadian, of national and local culture as well. So while we are focusing right now on the sporting component of this, there's a large cultural component of this that we will also dive into if and when we are awarded the games this upcoming April. To put some context into this, there are already confirmed funding sources provided from upper tier government. Both the province and the federal government have committed just over $10 million towards the games. And our estimate now, based on our projected budget, based on our projected participation in visitors, is that these games are going to see upwards of $200 million economic impact here locally within the region. As I mentioned, we are nearing the end of this bidding process. We will be doing a formal submission at the end of this month. That submission contains everything from a marketing and ticketing plan, community engagement opportunities, partnership opportunities that we've entered into around job creation programs with both Brock and Niagara College, but as well and importantly the budget that goes along with these games. We are going to be doing a site visit in March with the Canada Games Bid Evaluation Committee on March 1st. They will be here within our region to take in our bid. As I mentioned, we've done all 12 municipalities as a part of this, and I'd like to thank the Town of Pelham staff who participated as part of this planning process with us in creating this submission plan of what our venue plan would be for the games and making sure that we had the right sport and the right event in the right community for future legacy opportunities for those communities. With that in mind, the Town of Pelham has been identified as a potential host for one of our cycling discipline events. As you may be aware, we've been working with Steve Bauer, who I know many of you are very familiar with, in his classic course that he runs here every May. Steve has essentially also been the architect of our cycling plan moving forward, and we've identified a course that's very, very similar to Steve's actual course, which would be used for the games. So we've identified the Town of Pelham, as I mentioned, as a host for cycling as part of the games. That is a one-day event that would happen as a part of this. However, the legacy plan which we've identified for cycling in working with Steve is identifying an opportunity to create a cycling festival within Niagara and leveraging these legacy courses that are going to happen across multiple municipalities and creating a cycling festival opportunity that can activate all of Niagara beyond 2021 and before 2021. So with that in mind, we do have an ask of council this evening. The ask of council this evening is to help support some of the equipment required to host these cycling events. What we have been doing across all of our capital investment programs with each of our municipalities is asking for a contribution. We, as Canada Games, if we are successful in the host society, would contribute 50% of the overall cost of all of these capital infrastructure projects. We are asking for the other 50% to come from each of the municipalities. However, with that in mind, we have 4 cycling events happening as a part of this in St. Catharines, in Port Colborne, and also here within Pelham. So with that in mind, the ask of the Town of Pelham this evening is for only 1/8 of the contribution of the overall cycling equipment, 50% coming from the host society should we be successful in winning the games, 25% coming from the town of Port Colborne, and another 50% coming from City of St. Catharines, as they'll be hosting 2 of the 4 cycling components as a part of the games. In partnership for that, we are also asking for in-kind facility usage. This would be the otherwise fees associated with running these opportunities in these games. That is for both the road race, and we've also identified the new community center, which we'll be building as a practice facility for basketball for the games. The overall ask for the town of Pelham this evening is $21,250 towards the cycling equipment and the in-kind use of those facilities. I mentioned briefly cultural programs that will be happening as a part of this. We've identified a very unique opportunity that we have here in Niagara as a region. There's 13 provinces or territories. We as a region have 12 municipalities and a regional government, so there's a very nice match between those municipalities. So we'll be developing what we are referring to as a 13 for 13 partnership program that will partner municipalities with a like-minded province or territory to connect and animate that municipality with that province and territory and drive those visitors to your municipality during the games. So as I mentioned, that is our ask of you this evening. We do have an MOU which outlines that ask. We are asking for that MOU to be signed. I should note that the MOU is a non-legally binding agreement with Council this evening, and it's a sign of support for our bid moving forward. It's a critical messaging that we are putting forward to Canada Games Council. We've done this with each of the municipalities, and it's a very strong message that we put moving forward for Niagara support for these games. So with that, I conclude my presentation. I'm open to any questions that council may have this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. Do members of council have any questions for our presenter? Councillor Junkin, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yes, excuse me. A great presentation, and I hope you're successful, as probably everyone here is. Do you know have any idea yet who you're going to be bidding against?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are 4 bidding communities remaining in the process. Niagara Region, the city of Greater Sudbury, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge as a conglomerate, and the city of Ottawa.
Excellent. Well, we're obviously number 1, so it should be easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure that the question is to our presenter, and thank you very much for the presentation, as it is to our own staff. There's a requirement in the MOU that we will, under terms I think it is, that we will make our facilities exclusively available from the period, and I'm looking for it, August 5th to August 22nd. We will have a community center at that point, and it will be a terrific one, and it'll be quite large. Are you looking for the whole thing for that period of time, or is a part of it? I mean, have we looked at how to accommodate this within our already busy schedule?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are asking for the gymnasium component as a part of that. The MOU template, which you're looking at in front of you, is a template provided to us from Canada Games. The clause around exclusivity is in there because at this time we're unable to determine exactly when and how that facility would be used. However, we would work with you to schedule around your current user groups once the games are awarded.
Sure. One other question, if I may. There's obviously an ask of the municipalities, I suppose, relative to the nature of the event and the cost of that event. Are the municipalities the only parts of the region that will be putting up money, or is the region itself putting up some money too? Is there an ask to the region?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's multiple other partners that are contributing financially to the overall games bid. Both Brock University and Niagara College are making sizable contributions towards the support of the games. As well, specifically to answer your question around the region, we presented last week a Region's Corporate Services Committee, where Corporate Services Committee endorsed an ask of approximately $10.5 million on support towards the host society, and we will be going to full regional council for full endorsement of that this Thursday.
Right, and if I may, that 10 million is above and beyond the municipal portion that we're just talking about tonight. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others? Can you just remind us of the other, the cycling races and what this one is versus the other ones? Because they're pretty distinct in terms of what they are.
There. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've identified an appropriate course for an appropriate community. So this course is referred to a road race event. It's approximately a 10-kilometer loop. that the cyclists do for a predetermined distance. Another event which will be held in Port Colborne is a time trial. It's a 10K out and back, essentially, and we'll follow a very similar format to what we'll do here, assuming the route is endorsed in the sense of we have a start-finish line which we will animate and throw a community celebration at on race day. So it's a nice little way to bring in the community to the event. In addition to that, I mentioned the City of St. Catharines hosts 2 different components. One will be a mountain bike course, which will take place on the escarpment off of Brock University campus. And the last and final one is a criterium course, which is essentially a 1-kilometer loop, which will be happening in downtown St. Catharines, essentially along St. Paul, down into the lower level in front of the Meridian Center, the new Brock campus, and the First Ontario Performing Arts Center at that point. So that's the 4 loops that we have as a part of the sport.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the route, it's sort of, is it conceptual at this point? And can we, I know when we met with Ms. Van Ravensaway and I met with Steve Bauer, we had talked about that idea for a celebration at the community center, et cetera. So coming down and finishing, so this isn't etched in stone, it's still open for discussion, is that correct?
Correct. What we've had to do for the purposes of the bid submission is identify a tentative route as close to as possible as what we'd like to be if we're finalized. The process of what will happen is once we are awarded the games, we'll have to work with Cycling Canada to finalize what that route will look like. So for the purpose of our submission, this is a tentative route that will be taken into account. Other considerations such as that festival component once the final route is identified with hosting.
Great, thank you. Anything else from members of council for the presenter? Thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a motion. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved that the information presented by the Niagara 2021 Canada Games Bid Committee be received, and that Council of the Town of Pelham agrees in principle to endorse and support the Niagara Region bid for the 2021 Canada Summer Games, and the Council hereby acknowledges that this support will include a capital contribution for cycling infrastructure and other infrastructure in the amount of $21,250, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the Niagara 2021 Canada Summer Games Bid Committee, the Regional Municipality of Niagara, and the Town of Pelham. Questions or comments? There being none?
It's a good idea, Mr. Mayor.
Good idea. I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion carries unanimously. So add that to the tick box of communities where that has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your work on this. We look forward to your hearing favorably about this. And can you, I should just maybe ask Mr. Hill, can you just tell us about this Niagara Are You In card? So how people can participate in this.
Appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, because as I stepped away from the podium, I realized I forgot to mention that. What we are doing to generate an opportunity for the community to get involved in the bid process at this point is we've launched a social media campaign, called Niagara Are You In, hashtag Niagara Are You In. We have both a Facebook, Twitter page, and a website that you can go to at niagara2021.com. We currently have nearly 3,000 signatures of support from the local community supporting this bid process. So we are encouraging anybody to go out there and help spread the word to your friends, family, neighbors about supporting the games, as we will be using that as a tool to show the community support once this bid evaluation committee does arrive. So Mr. Mayor does have a few postcards. There are more available if anybody is interested in having those.
Maybe at some point we should get some here at Town Hall that we can hand out.
Happy to bring some down to you.
I did sign up on the weekend, and it's very easy to do so. So I'd encourage all to do that, and that's Niagara2021.com, and encourage folks to participate in that. And they can also have the opportunity to volunteer as well. So thank you very much. Congratulations, gentlemen. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday at the Region. Thanks. Take care. Thank you. Now we have a presentation by Autism Niagara, and L.B. Brown is here, and the clerk is switching the presentation. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
So on behalf of the Niagara chapter, we'd like to thank you again for your support just over the years through raising the flag on April 2nd, which is World Autism Awareness Day. So we've loved having that and having our families come out. So thank you so much.
I think this came out of a resolution that council endorsed and supported, and I believe Councillor Kersey, you raised the point, can we get more information about this? And council agreed. So I really appreciate you you coming this evening and giving council the information that we were looking for. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
so my role as Family Support Coordinator within Autism Ontario for the Hamilton, Niagara, Haldimand, Norfolk, and Brant regions is to be a resource to families to answer any questions that they may have about services throughout the province. And one of the main questions that we have been getting are the changes to the new Ontario Autism Program. A lot of families are confused, they're unsure. These are families who have been discharged from the IBI waitlist, as well as families who are over the age of, again, 5 and who have not been on that IBI waitlist and are still waiting for services as well. So there are a lot of questions. So this is just kind of to review the 3 main goals of the Ontario Autism Program. So the first one is, again, to really make sure that families are able to access services through reduced wait times. That's something that, especially in Niagara, we do have a very high wait list, so it's great to see that hopefully that will change in June 2017. And then also looking at more flexible services based on the needs of the child, and they'll provide that through different levels of intensity. Again, that will vary based on the child's needs and the assessments that happen when they're first entering into service. And then the last is that they're looking at increasing a number of treatment spaces available to families. As we know, the prevalence of autism has increased. So I did include the roadmap in your package, but I have pulled up the ministry website because this is kind of the best way to give an overview of what the families are experiencing. And so this roadmap here is what is in your package. And so the families have kind of a confusing situation depending on what area they're in. So again, if we were to look at if my child has been the first one here is 5 years or older, or is turning 5 and is on the IBI wait list. So you'll see the option that they can either choose to receive their continuous service in IBI or then become discharged as well. They can be going from there, and then they'll also have connections. And then if your child is 5 years old and is receiving IBI, again, the service will continue without interruption. And then they'll be discharged and supported through connections for students in the school as they transition from IBI back into school. And again, what that looks like will depend on each child. And then the next one here, if my child is 5 or older and receiving ABA, and I'd say this is where a majority of families are with the families that, again, we're servicing. So they're on the wait list. So where they are on the wait list, again, it depends. Bethesda Autism Services, they manage the wait list. So, and again, once families receive their service on ABA, they go back down to the bottom of the wait list until their name comes to the top of again. So that, again, still stays the same. And then if my child is on the wait list, same piece here, I am still holding and waiting and seeing. So again, they are running a variety of programs and services. Bethesda will be based on the needs of the individuals at the top of the list. And then finally, if your child is under 5 years old and is receiving IBI services, it again will continue without interruption. So that is sometimes what some families were concerned about. And then a transition plan will be developed, but what that looks like is, again, yet to be seen. And then finally, this last area is the one that I'm actually getting the most questions about. Is it's families who are on the IBI wait list, but their child is, let's say, 4.5 years old. So they're approaching the 5-year-old discharge. So families now will actually be approached by the agency. So they'll meet with Bethesda staff to discuss whether or not they would like to continue to wait on the IBI wait list, take the risk that they may or may not receive service depending on where they are, or they can opt out and receive the additional funding that is available. So for a lot of families, I again just got an email today of a family saying we have just opted out, and now what? Right, so there's a lot of private service providers. So we have the Gain Learning Center, just at the top of Highway 20 here in the Massimo's Pizza Center, and then also the Phoenix Center are the main two private service providers if the family opts to take that route. So I know I've spoken quickly, but what is great about the website is that if I were to again kind of go back, if the roadmap isn't straightforward, the families are able to again kind of click and see different options and kind of go through from there, but we're still finding that they are needing to have just a little more support as they have questions, as they're not really sure as to what does that mean next for them. So this does conclude the presentation. I'm open to any questions you guys have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown, for your presentation and for coming. Do members of council have questions for you? I'm going to go to Councillor Kersey and then Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. When the government first brought out this changed program, there seemed to be a lot of controversy in the press with respect to removal of the child from the IBI wait list and giving them this sort of nominal sum of $8,000. And there was a great deal of angst among the families that have kids that were in that situation. Since that inception, has that rancor settled down, and has it sort of leveled out, and are people still being able to access service and, you know, all of those sort of things that were put forward to raised as concerns about these changes?
Yeah, so now as a result of the families actually, again, raising quite a few concerns, the government did come back and say that not only will they receive the $8,000 once they've used up that portion of funds, they then have access to $10,000, or that's $10,000 privately that they can receive service, or they can receive service directly from our regional service provider, Bethesda. So every 10 weeks, they can be reassessed, so they can say, yes, I would like to continue with Bethesda, and then they can go along with that for 10 weeks and say, no, actually, I'd like to go private and take the $10,000. So it still is giving families a choice, and because they definitely recognize that $8,000 would not cover enough for the level of service, so that's why now this $10,000 is specific to therapy. So the guidelines for the $8,000 were much looser. So again, on here on the main page, there are the guidelines. So this is the additional direct funding for you to view, and it's very specific in that they have to be working with a board certified behavior analyst, has to be focusing on behavior therapy. The government was good in recognizing that occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists also are professionals that families want to access. So they said that if families would want to access that type of professional, that professional would have to have the board certified or specialization in autism to really make sure that they're providing those supports. So, and that funding will continue right as of now until June 2017.
A further question, Mr. Mayor, through you. My understanding from my reading is that IBI is most effective on children 5 years and younger, that you get in this intensive behavioral management and modification has the most impact when you're in your younger years as opposed to your older years. Could you comment on that?
Absolutely, yeah. The research has shown that absolutely IBI, so intensive behavioral intervention, is most effective under the age of 5, and that's where the government recognized that a lot of the families were receiving this therapy after the age of 5. So it was really due to the wait list, they were overwhelmed. So our families were getting access to the service at age 8 instead of age 5. We've had several families that will be diagnosed at 2 or 2.5, and they'll recognize that they don't want to wait that long, so they may remortgage their house, or again hold fundraisers to have to try to get this to pay for this service privately. So that's why now these changes to the autism services, they're hoping that it will again be able to decrease that wait list, still provide an intensive form of therapy. They won't be calling it IBI. It'll now be rolled into the Ontario Autism Program. So those families that are under 5 will still receive that, but the ones over will receive applied behavior analysis techniques as well, which are again very much evidence-based, but it is, yeah, a different form of therapy. And then the government also has done a pilot project where throughout the province they are going to have 4 sites of preschool interventions for kids 2 and under that also could be going through the diagnosis of evidence-based supports and therapies other than IBI, because they're also recognizing that there are more therapies than just IBI that are proven effective. So that's another reason why they have these pilots.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose there's no way to actually describe this in simple terms. But what I'm hearing has happened is that there's the opportunity for a greater flexibility of services, a wider range of services, as a result of providing parents with funding as opposed to streaming them through kind of a one-size-fits-all program. Have I got that right? Is that basically what's happening?
Yeah, so up until, you could say 2016, if a child wasn't eligible for IBI, so they didn't meet the criteria, they would not even be put on the IBI wait list. They'd go right to the ABA wait list. So this is where a majority of those families who actually did receive the $8,000, they would not have been eligible for IBI. So them receiving the $8,000 is fantastic to be able to support them until autism services again are again streamlined.
How can you give us a sense of the size of the gap between the need and the service that there is to provide for it?
Again, Bethesda Autism Services, they could comment on their wait list for ABA services, but currently at our last committee meeting, there was 999 individuals on the wait list. So, and based on their staffing, they would say that they would maybe be able to service a small number, and so the wait list could be anywhere from 1.5 years to 3 years for ABA service. So again, there is a huge need, and a lot of families are really having to reach out to other service providers. That's one reason why Autism, the Niagara chapter, provides camps and programs from a recreation standpoint, just because families are looking for, while we wait, now what? That is the question that I get as I'm on all the lists, I've done everything I can, so now what do I do? And then that's where we're trying to connect with, whether it's the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, other community agencies, to really try to support them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Others? Just to that point, you talked about the wait list, which is quite large, and I just wonder if you have a knowledge of how many, as an estimate, people in Niagara that have autism, that are affected, that are getting the program, and that you know of, that you serve, etc.
Yeah, so right now the prevalence rate in Canada is 1 in 94. So based on that, you can assume that 1 in every 100,000 people have autism, so about 1% of the Canadian population. We estimate that approximately 5,000 families, again, throughout the Niagara, Hamilton, Haldimand, Norfolk. But again, those are who are coming into contact with Autism Ontario as a whole. So the Niagara chapter, again, just their summer camp program serviced over 200 children on the spectrum, and adults as well. So there is, again, you could say at least 1,500 individuals who have autism that are waiting for these services. Would be the best guess that I could provide based on wait lists.
Okay, thank you very much. It's unfortunately a growing problem, growing issue, and as the population continues to grow and increase, and it seems to be more and more prevalent, unfortunately. So, Councillor Kirsch, you had a second, and is there anybody else for a first time?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
go ahead, Councillor Kirsch.
For you. Well, you were talking about reaching out to other community groups such as the Y, et cetera. Do you ever work with municipalities? We have a fantastic rec culture and wellness group here that runs summer camps, and do you ever interface with communities and work with groups like that and provide the expertise or assistance with the expertise that we might be able to assist some kids in our community that have been diagnosed with autism and are in need of some interfacing with
Yeah, so especially in my role as family support coordinator, I am tasked to be able to bring awareness and also training. So I have gone into other municipalities to provide training to their camp staff as well, just as an option, because we also know that there are so many other children with special needs that it's nice to provide kind of those specialized support. So absolutely we do. And the Niagara chapter, again, just being a small organization, is always looking to partner and provide services to our families based on the need. So it's always a open door policy, and we're willing to work with any agency or organization. We have several partnerships with other agencies and organizations, but yeah, from a municipality standpoint, that would be a first and very exciting. So
Maybe something we should look at, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure staff have duly noted that. Ms. Van Ravensway, you want to add to that? Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know that we have worked with Autism Niagara, and we have had them come in and train our staff, because not only in camps, we deal daily with, you know, the swimming lessons and so forth. So, yeah, we do have a working relationship, but I'm sure that it can grow.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation and filling us in on some of the blanks that were there. We really appreciate you doing that, but also we appreciate your work. Wish you all the best.
have a good
Thanks
day.
very much. You too. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the information presented by L.B. Brown respecting Autism Ontario Niagara Region Chapter be received. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you again, Ms. Brown, for coming here this evening and giving us that information. Thank you. Now we'll move on the agenda. Thanks again. Councillor Beatty would normally be slotted in this area. He may well be away. He hasn't, and we had meetings last week. Maybe I shouldn't disclose that to the public, so strike that from your knowledge there. But I'm sure I will be seeing him at Regional Council soon, and he'll give us a fulsome update. So now we move to consent. There's no business, no minutes? Adoption of minutes?
No, because the last minutes are turned by now.
Okay. Thank you. So there are no minutes from our last council meeting because it was just last week as opposed to 2 weeks. So we'll look forward to those minutes at our next meeting. So now we move to consent agenda items to be considered in block. We have already moved one of the items, and I see the author of that letter is here, so we appreciate her being here this evening and authoring that letter. Thank you, Ms. Crinlin. Are there any other items that members of council would like to lift for separate consideration? Okay, I don't see any. So it has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. 9.3, Canada 150 mural mosaic. Be it resolved the council receive the concept sheet that provides an update on the Canada 150 mural mosaic project. Then we have action correspondence of a routine nature. This is from the Fonthill Lions Club, a request for a municipal grant. Be it resolved the council receive the request from the Fonthill Lions Club dated January 9th, 2017, and that the discretionary municipal grant in the amount of $3,500 to the Fonthill Lions Club be approved. We have information correspondence items. I mentioned that one item will be dealt with later, but we have some from the Trillium Automobile Dealers Association regarding the vehicle registration tax and council's endorsement of that and saying that that should not occur. We have information about the T. Roy Adams Humanitarian of the Year Award, information from the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, and this is regarding some funding, information regarding Ontario's volunteer recognition programs for 2017. And finally, we have committee minutes for information, the Town of Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee minutes of their meeting of December 7th, 2016. Comments or questions on any of those items? Councillor Ribiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder whether our staff might be able to give us some clear idea about the mosaic issue. I'm reading this and I'm seeing that there will be individual designs, and there will be workshops, people will be painting, and then there'll be a mural. So I'd like to know just how that all works in some sort of practical way, and
Ms. Van Ravensway, can you assist the counselor?
please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we tried to make the report as descriptive as possible, but I can see there's still some confusion. Sorry.
Only in me, perhaps.
Okay, okay. So there's different stages. So the overall, at the end, what we want to accomplish is a mosaic mural that describes Pelham, okay? So number one, we're putting the call out, and we've already started to work with the area schools for to have community input on a identifiable symbol that symbolizes Pelham. So we're trying to get the community involved and excited about the project. That will be going on until, I believe, the end of February. And then we will have, certain identified symbols in our hands, and we will bring back 3 particular items. Those symbols, for instance, if it's the comfort maple and whatever it is,
Whatever,
the 3
yeah.
symbols will be sent to, once it's agreeable, and council will have the final say, will be sent to the 3 artists. The artists, this is in out west, they will then come back with a design, and you'll see something like the first design in Egg Yellowknife, that's what they came back with, okay? And there's 3 different designs there. Then what happens is we will host workshops. In the workshops, which we've already identified, because the artists are coming into town, will be a Thursday and Friday, June 8th and 9th. And there will be all-day workshops. We are going to try to paint 4x4 inch squares, 400. It'll all be pre-registered, so we know how many people are coming. 400 up to 700. Our goal is 700, but we could do a smaller mural at 400. And those will fill in the background, and you'll see how it fills in the background of the mural. That's the next stage of photos. At the end of, by June the 9th, we will have the paintings done, the squares. The artists, before they leave town, they will put the mural together, and we may have a soft opening or a soft display that night, or the unveiling will be July 1st at Canada Day. As you recall, we did apply for funding for this celebration, or this project. We also had council's blessing to go ahead with, the $12,000 to actually confirm that the artists will come in and the project will be done. If the funding is available, that's when we will incorporate a Canada 150 celebration. It's a Thursday, Friday. Perhaps we'll have the tent rental. We'll have it out in the park during the supper market and also the supper market.
Farmers market.
Farmers market will be going on at that point. The band shell starts the week after. And then the workshops will be complete. At the end of it, we will have across Canada, there will be they will take all of the murals and put them all together, as you can see, and it will form a link right across Canada. The only municipalities, that's digital, okay? The only municipalities in the region that have been selected is ourselves and the town of Lincoln. The artists will be working with the town of Lincoln, close after they've been here.
Thank you. Does that help, Counselor?
A little, just for clarity then. There'll be individual 4x4 pictures,
Yes.
which will be put together into a mural here in Pelham, which would be located, I guess, somewhere in Pelham. Is it intended to be permanently here, or?
Yes, it is intended that it will eventually be in the atrium at the
Okay.
community center, but until then, we are debating on a space for it, which could end up on some blank
That wall or this wall or somewhere?
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, so the mural that is produced here becomes part of a larger mural across the whole country?
Right.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Much more clear on it, thank you.
Councilor Hurley, to this issue, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this is a great idea, and I just hope it lasts longer than the mural that was at Effingham and Canberra Road. That's,
Yes. Thank you. Others to that issue? Others to other items under the consent agenda? Nice to receive some recognition of a motion that council supported and endorsed regarding the vehicle registration tax. So kudos to the Trillium Automobile Dealers Association. And there is some great news there regarding the Federal Economic Development Agency, some pool funding, which I'm sure will make up, don't pardon the pun, splash about at some other date. Just a quick question for the treasurer. I didn't see it in the report, but regarding the Fawn Hill Lions Club and the request for the municipal grant, it's the same amount or lower or different than previous years? Can we just hear, Madam Treasurer?
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. Last year, they requested $4,500 and received that grant contribution, and this year they're asking for $35,000.
Okay, thank you. So it's the first one under that discretionary account. So, thank you for that. Anyone else on any of the items? You ready to call the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you. Now we move to presentation consideration of reports. The first is my brief report, and because it's so brief, I wanted to bring props to you this evening. So on your desks, you'll find, depending on where you're sitting, some pins and or a hockey puck. Some of the pins are celebrating Pelham Minor Hockey, which is celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. Some might also be the Silver Stick tournament. So it was my pleasure and honor to be at the opening of the 18th annual International Silver Stick Tournament, along with Councillor Durley and Ms. Van Ravensway. This is very, very exciting opening, and it was held at the Scotiabank Convention Center in Niagara Falls. Grand opening ceremony, I've been going to these, I think every year since serving as mayor, and I know other councillors have gone as well, and Councillor Durley is always there, and staff as well. This was one of the best. Just in the way it was organized, the feeling in the room, I think some of it had to do with the placards that they carried across the stage, and you see in the picture there that each of the teams were celebrated and had their moment. 80 teams from across North America were there, including New Mexico, including Wyoming, including even across Ontario as well. Just a great tournament, a great feeling, and just very, very well organized. So kudos to the volunteers that have put this tournament together. Heard wonderful things about the tournament and the teams that were here, and partnerships that were between the various teams with our Pelham teams that were also participating. So congratulations to those volunteers, just making it a memorable event for so many. That grand opening ceremony had more than 2,200 in attendance at it, which is amazing, and it was a great event. So congratulations regarding the tournament. And basically, that's my report. I should also say I was in Niagara Falls for another event on Friday, and special thanks to the Niagara Grape Growers Association for inviting me to attend the 22nd annual Ice Wine Gala, which is a wonderful event as well. So thank you. I now have a motion. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved that Mayor Augustine's report dated January 16th, 2017 be received for information. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Now we have some staff reports requiring action. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved, the council receive the concept paper Bell Infrastructure on Haste Arena, and the council approve and execute the attached agreement between the town and Bell upon approval of the agreement from the municipal solicitor. Discussion regarding this report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer of the CEO, were there other bidders? Tell us, were there other carriers that bid? Anybody, do you know?
No, this is, sorry, Mr. Mayor, this was a request, it wasn't a bid situation.
Wasn't
It was
a bid?
No, it
Just
was their infrastructure needing a boost, so they want to locate their infrastructure on our building, so they've approached us to do such a thing. So it wasn't like an open competition.
Wasn't an open
Kind of a
competition.
unsolicited bid, but from their side, they approached us.
Right.
Is that a good way to put it? They
Yes,
approached us.
I'm just
they
curious.
approached us, there was no bidding.
Okay, that's a good way.
Okay, good. That's
Thank
all I
you.
need to know.
Others, Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding along this bid idea is that this is non-restrictive. So, for example, if another company like TELUS wanted to approach to put their antenna in there, we would be open and available to do that. So it's a non-restrictive.
Is that right?
It was, so I think that,
Okay.
that's
cool.
worth supporting.
Thank you. So they would have to come to us, I guess, Mr. CAO, if they wanted to do that?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Others? I think I have a question for Ms. Weens. I know that we have a cell tower protocol, and we're not following it. I guess is it because it's too small, it's different? Can we just hear a little bit more about that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, we do have a cell tower protocol and a policy for dealing with requests or applications for location of radio telecommunication and cell towers within the municipality, but those are for large towers, and so this would not meet that criteria. We've got a fairly small antenna structure attaching to the roof of the arena building here, and it doesn't exceed the height that the protocol that we have in place would require.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Anyone else? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Next item has been moved by Councillor Junkin, seconded by Councillor Kersey. Be it resolved, the council received the report capital budget request, Tice Road improvements for information, and the council approved the capital budget request funds for Tice Road corrections. This was an item that was red circled in our capital budget, an item as well that council wanted additional information about at our December 19th, 2016 meeting. And so here it is. Anything further? Very comprehensive report. Councillor Kersey, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I took the initiative to make an appointment to view the buildings and do a walk around to get a feel. Pictures say one thing and walk around say another sometimes. And I wanted to get some firsthand information with respect to the site and the building condition and what have you. Not that I doubted what staff put forward, I just wanted to get more detail on it. And out of that, Mr. Mayor, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and despite the fact that I seconded this motion approving the entire budget, I wanted to get it on the floor more than supporting the actual dollars. I think what's lacking in the overall plan, Mr. Mayor, is a plan. And over the years, I've done lots of buildings and shot from the hip, and that was okay because I was able to shoot with my own money. But I think here we're shooting with taxpayers' funds, and I think we need to have a plan that addresses all the needs of that building. And if you look at the assessment report, and then look at the report with respect to this request, in fact, this money really is a Band-Aid on a bigger problem that would require more dollars and more planning. So what I would be prepared to suggest, and I would most likely move an amendment, would be that I would support the improvement of the water system there such that we would have potable water. Even there, I've made a few phone calls just to find out about water systems and what might be involved to bring the water out there up to a serviceable level. And I think we're probably at half the price of what we need there. We probably need $15,000 to do it properly. That I would recommend that we approve the roof improvement or correction such that it was done properly, and that where the buildings join each other, and that seems to be one area of significant problem, but the entire roof leaks, that it would be done properly by way of RFP, and we know that the problem is solved once and for all. So at least we protect the assets that we have. And further to that we would approve some amount of money, and I haven't settled on in my mind how much that might be, and might look to staff for some advice on that, such that we would engage someone that would look at the overall site, look at the building. We force private developers to enter into site plans where they tell us all of the things on the site that are going to happen, so that if buildings that are there need to be moved around such that the site is more functional, let's know that ahead of time. Let's know what's going to happen to the trailers from the arena ahead of time. If they can't be incorporated, fine, it's better we know that ahead of time, that we're gonna have an asset that we can sell down the road. If they can be incorporated, let's understand where they're gonna be incorporated and how they're gonna be incorporated. And out of that, we can develop and how we're going to rearrange the office space out there such that it's optimal in accommodating whatever we envision in that property in the future. But I think that will involve some planning and probably developing a multi-year budget such that we can undertake it in a very logical way, and that we don't do something that in future years we have to undo because we didn't look at the grand scheme of things. So that's what I really like to say about it, Mr. Mayor. I'm on board with the water system. I'm on board with the roof repair, but I'm not on board with spending the $110,000 to move offices around and just put some paint on a pig. I'd rather us do it in a comprehensive, well-informed manner, and for that, I think we need to have a plan whether we can do it internally or whether we need to engage an outside contractor. Remains to be seen, and we'd have to look at staff for some input on that. But I think that's the way we should go, and I'd be prepared to move an amendment to that effect, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Others to the motion, and Councillor Pop?
Sure. So just so I'm clear, Councillor Kersey, that 73,000, which includes the water treatment, you have no problem with. We would proceed with that.
Which, the
66,000 for the roof repair, obviously.
Yep.
Water treatment.
Correct.
Which would be.
Again, I think we need RFP.
We need more money for that,
We
that's
need
for
more
sure.
money.
But what you're suggesting is that any of the office, lunchroom, shower renovation, which it says engineer designed and all the rest, any of those other items would be deferred
Correct.
until we had a proper plan put together?
Correct.
Okay, I'll stop there.
So, Councillor? I guess my question is, for staff, the report before us indicates that it is a shorter term solution. And so I'd like to hear from staff. That means generally one would think that there is a longer term solution in mind. And so Ms. Clemencio Do we have a longer-term solution as well behind this? Some of the things that the councilors have talked about? Can you give us a flavor for that as well? I think you did that at our meeting verbally. It may not be all in the report.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, we don't. We had, How Might We was heading in that direction, but in light of the short-term needs for the town and for what's needed at Tice, the focus was shifted to what is needed for this transition and for meeting the requirements, the health and safety concerns. The longer term, we had discussions a year and a half ago about there's $500,000 in the development charges assigned for Tice Road improvements based on growth. But those haven't been discussed any further at this point. It was a year ago that we said, let's start putting our heads together around the transition, and that's where the focus has been. So a long-term plan is not in the works.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Duncan?
I dare say that if we're prepared to do what my colleague wants to do, is spend the $70,000 on the roof, then I think it falls into line, myself, that we're committed to that building, whether it be the walls. They say they want them repointed, fill the cracks, repainted, and the washrooms. I just, if you're going to do the roof, I honestly don't see myself what the argument would be with maintaining other aspects of the building, whether it be, I think in one of these pages it had replacing the windows and what have you. Myself, and when I saw the condition of the lunchroom up, they have to go up the stairs, and in the condition of the change room, looked like it was about a 10 by 10 room. I don't know. Myself, I know it's a heck of a sum of money, $266,000. But I'm just, if you're going to look after part of the building, myself, I think we should. I have no problem biting the bullet, and I guess the only thing that caught my eye, and I didn't go to take a look at that, was the $40,000 for an air vent system. I really don't know what that entailed. Maybe other than that, I honestly don't have a lot of problem with this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others for the first time? Councillor Ribbiak, King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councillor Duncan with respect to an attitude toward this report. I guess if there's a fear in the long term, it would be that this money would be put into this building and then the building abandoned. And therefore, we had to spend the same money somewhere else to provide somewhere else for people to go. I've not heard anything from staff to suggest that Tice Road isn't going to be an important part of our structure for the foreseeable future. And the condition of that building in order to serve adequately in that foreseeable future would require these repairs and these improvements. So I'm supportive of this report and would vote accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor King and then Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just concerned about the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and if we're not spending this money, how are we going to not be compliant? That I am concerned about that, because we need to be in compliance in the area of health and safety. So a portion of this expense that Councillor Kersey is referring to may impact us on meeting compliance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, of most concern from a compliance point of view would be the quality of the water and the ability for sewer, sanitary sewer working staff to wash, to shower. Those two pieces. So the breakout of the shower facilities wasn't included. It's part of the reno with the plan that we had on deck, with the drawings that we had of where that was going to go. It was a bathroom renovation downstairs related to the lunchroom. So I don't have a number of that shower renovation broken out. The water change, we originally had actually a quote for $12,000 for the potable water system. We downsized that, knowing that for cost savings for this report, so that we would only be treating the water for potable use and still maintain water, untreated water for hoses and other uses that we felt we could sacrifice that to keep our costs down. So that said, if the potable water is to come up so that the site is using potable water and to have that shower, I could come back with that amount. I just don't have that number at hand.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Drilling?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I agree things need to be done because these conditions are not healthy at all, and it's a shame to have people working in conditions like this. But the report does indicate we'll address some critical areas until a more suitable long-term solution is improved. What are we looking at, or what is a suggestion in the future for a long-term solution? This is something critical to my thinking, and like this being a flat roof, I believe it's all flat roof, is it not?
Correct.
They're very expensive to repair, and the report says repair to central roof. In my experience, when you have something flat or on a very low slope, the leak could be here, but the water could be coming in here. So, fixing part of the roof, I'm not sure is the answer. What, like 66,000, is that an estimate from a roofer or the other thing? Like, it's a substantial amount of money, and as it was mentioned before, if we're throwing good money after bad here, and we're going to do something in the mid to longer term, that's going to cost a lot more money, we'll be double spending. So, just an idea of what's a long-term solution, or what's in our minds as much as a long-term solution could be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as a result of the how might we, as far as we got with that, the staff came out thinking that Tice Road still will remain, or should remain, the key location for several reasons. The salt dome is located there and the fuel is located there, and those are two known operations that tend to be tied to contamination issues. In the past, we've done a lot of animal burial, I understand, there as well, so I don't think we would have any intentions of unloading that site anytime soon. We might as well stay, use it, and operate it efficiently. There were concerns about the size and whether we could grow into that site or not. It was thrown out about considering purchase of neighboring land, and that's really where it started talking. As soon as we started talking about purchasing land, then the challenge map grew, and then it shrunk back down when we started really talking about costs. But we did strongly feel that the Operations Center site as a whole now, and I'm comfortable behind it, could stand also to grow. With some serious relocation and thinking about how that site works from a traffic flow and a people flow point of view. Some of it we were going to try to take on internally with some minor changes that staff could take on over the course of about a year. But the longer term pieces, the location of that salt dome is not ideal. The location of the fuel is not ideal. The location of the mechanic garage access doors is not ideal. There's a lot of long-term things, but not impossible to fix on the site. So that's the direction we were heading, was that we could probably make use of the site as is. The building itself would need some more consideration. So the roof is in three parts, various styles of roof. The repairs were split into three. We did one repair this year that was just a $5,000 repair to kind of buy us some time in the mechanics end. This $66,000 is for the central area, and then there's a piece of less critical roof repair that's needed on the south end. So it's all folded in, and that was the direction that we as a staff group were heading, that Tice Road could work, which is why we weren't too scared of recommending that we invest some money in doing some fixes and then work on the long-term plan in alignment with the DC.
Thank you. Billy, on that through you, Mr. Mayor. So what you're proposing is a Band-Aid now, but it's going to last in the long term because we're planning on keeping this center operational. Is this right? So we must do it quality-wise rather than just a Band-Aid-wise.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that certainly hasn't been vetted through SMT or through the CAO, other than the CAO discussions that we had through the how might we, but that's definitely the feeling of the how might we that involve staff, all of Public Works, was that we feel that Tice has the bones to work, and how we could make it work into the future with some growth in with the DC money perhaps coming to fruition. We felt it was a possibility, yeah.
Okay. I would like to see a long-term plan on that, just building on what was said earlier, because it's, to throw a Band-Aid on something like this just to get it by this year, it'll double the cost next year, and let's do it right, and so we don't have to do it over. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to point out to Councillor Junkin and others, the report that he's looking at is the FCA report.
Yes.
Most of that FCA report is not being addressed in this. So the tuck pointing and the windows, et cetera, that's not here.
That's 5 years out, yes.
Yeah, so you're really talking about maybe $400,000 or $500,000. Some of this stuff isn't even included in the FCA report, such as moving walls and furniture and all that, because that report doesn't really look at that. It's more looking at the condition, functional condition of that asset. Okay, so I just point that out, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you.
So-
That's helpful. I think it is important, what I'm hearing from a staff perspective is that they use the creative problem-solving process. We're thinking large, and then when they kind of looked and did the convergent thinking on the chart over there and did some, the term for it, but used a little bit more discretion, there's another term for that, and evaluated the different ideas, they kind of came to the conclusion that this site is that site. So they did, through this process, look at the potential for other sites. Can something be done at Centennial Park or Marlene Stewart Street Park in the Park Lane building? The potential for Pelham Center School, which we know the school board will be considering, an asset for sale. The new Pelham Community Center, any lands in East Fawn Hill, vacant lands in various Pelham locations. The existing arena, no doubt, was looked at as well. So, in knowing that they looked at alternative sites and seeing that what we've just heard from the director, that for a number of reasons, including contamination, historic contamination, and also no doubt the functionality of the department where it's located, it is relatively central. This is appearing as, I'm not trying to put words in Councillor Durley's mouth here, but it is appearing to be that longer term, so that it isn't a Band-Aid in the sense of this will abandon the site. I think as other councillors have said, we're not going to abandon the site, but there might be some tweaks or changes and things. So with that in mind, and the additional comprehensive report that's before us, I'm confident that going forward with the recommendation that staff are suggesting is the way to go, because I do think that it will pay dividends in the future in that long-term plan. Having said that, some members of council have expressed concern about what the future will look like. And I was surprised by the director's response to say there isn't officially a plan that you can point to necessarily, and no doubt if this gets approved, then staff will say, okay, this is where we're going to be, let's put that plan together. And it sounds like the director has done some thinking on that, just not something that she can necessarily present to us this evening in terms of that plan. the CAO indicated to me that that's something that staff could come back to council with, that longer-term plan and the longer-term thinking, if council desires it. But I am confident that what's being recommended is, as some other councillors have said, it will be a good investment. It won't be a Band-Aid. It won't be something that we're going to abandon in the future. And I think, given the nature of the concerns that are there, I think we should proceed as staff are recommending. So those are my thoughts, and I open the floor again to councillors. Councillor Powell.
So what are we looking at, 266,000 or 227,000?
It's 227, I believe, Madam Director.
Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, I believe it's 227. Is there a
Okay.
discrepancy in the report?
I think
The FCA is 266.
It was the FCA.
the other
that I read.
report talks about 266,000.
That's the one we're running.
If I might clarify, the FCA report was attached for some alignment or reminding of what the outstanding other issues in the building are. This wasn't meant to address those. And the dollar value that's in the report, it's a 2014 report, those were all translated into the 20-year capital plan. So they are in the long-term plan for investment in TICE, just not specifically in this 226 is independent of that, with exception of the roof repair.
That's helpful. Thank you. Councillor?
Okay, I'm supportive. I'm looking at it as both many of you have discussed and Councillor King hit on a working conditions, safety. It's a temporary remedy to get us through into a longer-term plan to maximize the use of this building and the ultimate site itself. We're not there yet, as I understand. We haven't figured that out yet because we still got some temporary, I should say, temporary moves that we have to make. So you can't I don't mean to be, but staff to work under these conditions, and there are some obvious things there that you have to fix. I would say, okay, it's maybe not the best investment, but it's an investment that will remedy what we need to do until we get to the stage that we can decide whether, for that matter, if we decide we sell the property, I'm not just saying this facetiously, we decide that's not going to be our central operations center, we're going to go someplace else, but and notwithstanding what Councillor Kersey's, but we got to move forward on this, because the building itself, when I read the FCA report, it's in poor condition. That's a bad, I'm going to say, that's not a good indication, which should suggest to us as responsible governors of our municipality that we have to do something to fix it and immunize us from other potential, how could I say, liabilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? So are we ready for calling the question? All right.
Mayor, I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Madam Clerk, I'd ask you to do the recorded vote on behalf of council. Thank you.
Certainly, the motion on the floor is, be it resolved that council received the report capital budget request Tice Road improvements for information, and that council approved the capital budget requested funds for Tice Road corrections. And it was moved by Councillor Junkin, seconded by Councillor Kersey. I will call for your votes. Councillor Kersey.
Against.
Councillor Durley.
In favor?
Councillor Junkin.
For it.
Councillor King.
In favor.
Councillor Papp.
In favor.
Councillor Ribbiak.
Supportive.
Mayor Dave.
In favor.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The motion carries. I look forward to hearing additional information about that as this progresses. And no doubt that longer-term plan will be coming to council. As the CEO is nodding his head, so thank you very much. Good discussion. We now move to item 18. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following. An item under section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, one item. I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. And I would ask that we now move into closed session. Thank you very much. take a
It's gone to bed. Technical difficulties.
the resolutions to rise. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. The clerk is getting us all organized here. Thank you all. So it has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, the council adjourn the in-camera session and the council rise with report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. So we did have a discussion in closed session about identifiable individual. And I wonder if a councillor might be willing to make the motion. I believe it was something like, how's that? The council receiving the letter from Ms. Crinlin, which was the consent agenda item regarding the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and the practice used to appoint members to the NPCA, and that council direct staff to put forward a motion at our next meeting regarding the appointment process, so the Pelham Council might publicly advertise and recommend for appointment a qualified and independent citizen to represent Pelham in the future when the position opens. So is somebody, you're prepared to move that? Thank you very much. And Councillor Papp will second that. Yeah, Kersey Papp. So again, we'll look forward to the direction, and maybe Councillor wants to speak to it, and others are certainly welcome to speak to it, that the idea that, and we'll debate it at our next meeting, but directing staff to put together an appropriate resolution saying that in the future, council is interested in appointing a qualified and independent citizen to represent Pelham. And that really the motion, this is sort of a notice of motion, colleagues, to say that that it would seek to then ask regional council to amend the practice that Ms. Crinlin identified, so that in the case of Pelham and perhaps across municipalities, that the decision to serve on the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority is not given to the regional councillors. Instead, that is given to the area municipalities to appoint a citizen rep on that board. So because it's a bit technical, I'll say, and that's why we're getting staff to put together that motion, and then council will consider it at our next meeting. So we haven't approved that yet. The motion is on the floor to direct staff to do that, to put forward the appropriate wording, etc. And so that's what we're about to vote on. Is the clerk, are you up to speed with that? Okay, thank you. And do members of council want to add anything to the motion? Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. I appreciate that. So I'm going to call the question on that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously, and we look forward to that resolution, or that motion coming forward for council to consider at our next meeting. Thank you. And I appreciate the patience of those that are here. Now we move to our next item of business, which is moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved, following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and passed, being bylaw 3821 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 16th day of January 2017. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll talk to you soon. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved, this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for February 6, 2017, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Poor Delicio.